Welcome, everybody, to the Casually Hardcore Podcast. My name is Brian. This is episode 56. Welcoming HealMeHarry back to the show. Harry, last we talked.
I don't have a TV that supports Duck Hunt. I
I
still
love
own it.
that you pulled up like Mario. I'm like, I've got a Mario Kart in Super Mario 3. This game means so much to me. So thanks so much.
Insane.
So thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks
Obviously,
for having me.
After the podcast, like you were featured on the front page of Twitch. Congratulations for that. You've also made a massive move. You've been having tons of live events, obviously, as all a part of that. So before we dive in, I guess just the easiest question for you: are you really looking forward to Eden, the second phase, and seeing as we get a beardless Ramu?
It's probably the thing that I'm most excited for throughout all of 5.2 is the continuation of the Eden story.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'm excited for everything else. Like, there's so much that we're getting, but I don't know. This is the first raid tier where I'm actually really drawn into the story of it. Like, sure, I mean, Coil, yes, I loved that, but Alexander and the Omega story, I was just like, yeah, whatever, let's just get through it, blah, blah, blah. But this story actually really has me because it feels like it's actually really impactful to like the main story of Shadowbringers as well.
Exactly. Like what caused the flood? Well, we know.
Yeah.
And were you surprised? So like, obviously, since we've talked, freaking Primal's back, and a different version of him. We had, Leviathan and Titan. Like that was awesome. Like we fought Eden first. And so it was a nice twist, especially having done the different raids, each and every time. Go ahead, Chris.
There's just as a spoiler warning to anybody going through Shadowbringers, we're just going to talk about whatever we want to talk about tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to interrupt you before we dive too far into that. Carry on.
Please continue.
So I guess my question is, like, as somebody who has just gotten into the lore for the first real time, I mean, it's not that I've never seen a cutscene in 14, but like I've read everything in Shadowbringers. I read the side quests. Like, this is a totally new way to play this game for me. And it takes a lot longer. And are the primals being spun up from like our memory?
Yeah. Because
that makes me think that we've been having like dreams about like what Ramu would look like if he like went to a barber. like what's going through our head that's you didn't remember the beard? Like, come on, man. Like, how bad is our memory?
What do you think? Harry?
We remembered the beard, but we just remembered it in a much more fashionable way, let's say. In a way that allows the showing of the rest of the human form. Wow.
The human
form, yes. Centaur form.
That is so cool. Like that, and then the fact that we've got Ifrit and we have Garuda together, a raid with two bosses, and I'm assuming at the same time, unless they want to tag team in. And is there any predictions like you would think for turn 4?
Well, my predictions were kind of thrown out the window already because I thought we were gonna have two, like they were gonna follow the same structure of having like 2 Eden style things and then 2 primals again. I thought we were gonna stick with that. So I thought we were gonna get this time Garuda and Ramu because they're both kind of related to weather. And then next time we were gonna get like Shiva and Ifrit because it's like opposites, fire and ice. And that way in each like set of primals, we're going to get one of the original 3 and then one of the added 3 throughout A Realm Reborn. So just in my head, I was like, this makes perfect sense. But they've just gone and done whatever they want.
They just, That's
true of this whole expansion.
That's the best part of the expansion.
They said, we're not tied to Metacritic or anything anymore. We just want you to make the game that you want to make. Go.
And it's done fantastic for them. Like, it's Shadowbringers was just outstanding and the raids have been amazing, and it's just it's almost like the game is the best it's ever been, like right now. The
highest like Metacritic score ever, and Yoshi P gave an interview in which he said that he told his team, we're not like, don't worry about the Metacritic score because bonuses have been started to tie into that for a long time in the industry. And he said that he took that away, or like I'm sure they got their bonuses, but he took it away the connection to Metacritic, and it freed them to create the Shadowbringers. And
so
honestly,
took it away. You're not getting bonuses anyway.
No bonuses for you.
No money. My
but
money.
It's taking away that pressure, because like money is an incentive. You know, you're like, oh man, if I do this, what if they don't like it? And it kind of taking away that pressure seems to really have worked for them. And I'm wondering if, just as a study, like from a development mindset, like if that ends up being a psychological barrier to why games have really been, just some games, not all games, but where some games struggle, where they're just like, I'm trying to hit this certain score and try to appeal. Yeah. And so they're not actually being free to create, they're just kind of doing kind of a paint by the numbers, and it doesn't necessarily resonate.
Yeah. I think people sometimes forget that games are a form of art.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is stressed and under pressure, creativity doesn't happen. What happens under that situation is productivity. But productivity doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to make a good game.
Right.
Like you need that creativity and that freedom for their like not to just constantly feel like they have to get everything done. And it feels like that's what they've done this time. I don't know. The story had so much more room to breathe. Like it just, because the person that did the story was the person that did the Dark Knight quest line, I'm pretty sure.
I think so. They had her on. They had her on stage, and she kind of gave some insights, and she did a phenomenal job. Honestly,
everyone gave her a standing ovation because she deserved it.
Yeah, well deserved, to the point where it makes me excited to see what they do with the Final Fantasy franchise going forward. It's like I think it resonates. I think people really kind of connect into it, and it gives them hope. It gives them hope for the future. But let's go ahead and do some podcast stuff, and then let's dive into our big topic, Burnout and Final Fantasy XIV. What else you playing? That's kind of the note here. We'll see where this conversation goes. Lots of fun. So again, we'll have links in our description below, so you can go follow Harry on all the social medias in which that he presides. Then you can also catch him live on Twitch, streaming Final Fantasy XIV and other games, and that's probably what we're going to talk into about. Like, when is it good times to take breaks from, like, especially games that require a lot of investment, like Final Fantasy XIV, a game that all three of us just, love. Like I said, this is episode 56. Our last episode with guest was, why am I drawing a blank, Chris? Nerd Slayer.
Well, our last one was just us.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I'm being thrown off because it's like,
and then we had Nerd Slayer before that.
Like 2 episodes ago, we had Nerd Slayer talking about MMORPGs, sandbox versus theme park. That is up on all the platforms for anybody to go out and check out and enjoy. It was
a ton of fun.
Oh, dude, yeah. And then we just want to thank our partnership with Exit Lag for helping support the channel. Links in the description below. If you are tired of 200 ping, like Harry is, you can check out like a ping reducing software. If you use ours, use the link, use the code DOWORK for 3 free days, 20% off. And if it doesn't work, cancel and just go about your life and have a good time. So, all right, with that out of the way, and with a couple White Claws by my side, we're going to see how this podcast goes. This is, let's have some fun, guys. Burnout. It's a real topic. I've seen some interesting articles posted from different places, and talking about, like, why at this point did they have such a great, strong connection with Shadowbringers, and why are they feeling, like, why are they lacking motivation to log in? And my philosophy with all of that is always just say, listen to that, go play something else. Like, don't ever play through the pain. And a lot of people, or people that I've spoken with, it might be masked. They might not know they're burning out, and then it hits them hard. Harry, what's your strategy? How do you take breaks? How do you work that as a content creator into your schedule so that you can have a healthy relationship with not just 14, but any game in general?
Yeah, it's something that comes up on stream a lot, and something that a lot of people ask, because a lot of the time my schedule for streaming is Final Fantasy XIV Monday through to Friday every week, every single week of the year. So I get the question a lot about how do you deal with burnout? How do you like continue to enjoy the game and all that kind of stuff? For me, the reason why I like MMOs so much is because there is always a way to continue to improve your character.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, that's what it's all about. It's about like building on your character, which is why I don't really play alts, because there's no motivation for me. Like, that's not working on my character. You know what I mean? Like,
mad respect to people who do.
Yeah, totally. For me, I'm just like, this is not fun for me.
Gives me anxiety.
Yeah, I'd prefer to like be if achievements were like account wide, I would probably be more inclined to have alts. But because it's per character, I'm like, no, like I want to keep working on the one thing. So I think that definitely helps with my burnout. But like you said before, you have to listen to burnout. Like if you're feeling burnt out, if you're not feeling like you want to play the game, don't just push through because it's a video game. Like you're meant to enjoy yourself. It's not meant to be something you feel pain when you play. So if you need to have a break, play a different game, whether it's a different MMO or a single player game, do it. Just do it.
From the content creation perspective though, because you're a full-time streamer, you're partnered, right? You know, so it's like, yes. And obviously there's probably other things that you do, like all of us, the gig economy, but how do you do that? Especially with, like with you consider your community, you know, in that regards, because one of the things that we've had a couple of people on, you know, the podcast, and they say, thank God they're not tied in mentally to one game, because like, imagine, you know, especially even the big streamers, like the ones in the top 10, like I know you for X, play X or I'm not going to hang out. And obviously they're big enough that they can carry another game. But when you talk about the up and comers in the middle class, like how would you, would you have any advice for somebody in that kind of ballpark?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like that with my community as well. Like my community has grown from Final Fantasy XIV. So when I do go and play something else, there is less people that do come to those streams. Like I have my core community that come with me everywhere because they're there for the community and they're there for hanging out with me. But then I do have to be mindful sometimes, because even those people, technically, like the original reason they were there was for Final Fantasy XIV. So I have to be mindful that, you know, that is still a presence within the stream, even if I do go and do other things. So I think if you're more in like the middle area, like me, or in the smaller area like me, you kind of just need to be like, okay, so I do a schedule at the start of every week of what I'm going to play for the week. As long as even when there's in a low period of 14, as long as there's like 2 days in there out of 5, or like roughly 50% or less of your content is your main game still, you're still going to be able to maintain the people that are interested in that one game. And then you might hopefully not feel as burnt out as well.
Are you liking Temtem?
That's how I do it. Sorry?
Are you liking Temtem?
I personally have been really enjoying Temtem. Yeah, it's been a fun little extra thing to throw into stream. Like, I was super skeptical about it at first. Like,
oh yeah, talk to me about that.
I was going to enjoy it. I did not think I was going to enjoy it at all. I was like, this looks like a knockoff Pokemon, and I'm not a huge fan of the art style. And like, why would you want to play Pokemon as an MMO anyway? Because it's basically a single player experience, and like Sword and Shield gives you the online stuff anyway. Like, why would you want to do that? And then I started playing it, and I was like, this is awesome.
Oh man, like that's the thing people are saying. Like, it's like Pokemon. I go, yeah, just you got to touch it. Like once you kind of you know get a feel, you see how the different changes to the battle system come into play. Like it's addictive. Like Chris is actually he got in. He passed me. I had a head start on him. He's passed me, and then now he's been mopping the floor. We've been challenging each other at battle once a week. And I've got to grind.
Don't do the math on how many hours I have versus how long I've been playing.
So you guys have been playing it a lot as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
to the point where like I'm legitimately feeling like, okay, dial it back, save something for when they release more of the game. Like don't go get all perfect 7 statters, and then like they come out with new Tems, and I'm like, I'm not using new Tems. I got perfect statters here. Like so
I have a whole team of perfects over here.
I haven't done like an official review on it, but like to show kind of the chat, I got a clip for my phone. I have a development phone that's Samsung, and I got this clip that connects to my Xbox controller, which I can hook up to this. So I've been using Shadow PC, and they're a sponsor of the channel as well, and so I can connect to Temtem with just playing this on the go. So I can be downstairs, I can be up here, like waiting for something to process and finish on the computer. So I've been kind of playing around with that, and I've been trying to get into xCloud, but I'm just like, oh man, heck yes. It's the perfect
That's
game,
amazing.
even if it's being streamed, because like even if I was like in an area where maybe my like getting a little interference or my connection isn't as good, it works great because it's so I don't have any excuse for having Chris lap me in the game, but I guess I have kids, so I'll use them.
I blew right
That's a
by
good
you.
enough excuse.
Yeah. So what other games are you playing right now?
Pretty much just Temtem. I was going back and gonna do a run through. I was doing a run through of Okami on the Switch, because it's one that I've like gone back and tried to play a bazillion times, but just have never finished. But I don't know. I just enjoy streaming MMOs so much more than single player games. I don't know why. There's just something about the way that it flows as a game on stream. MMOs just feel so much better for me. So I always tend to end up going back. So it's pretty much just been 14 and Temtem.
I mean, you've changed it up a lot within 14. You've done PvP, you've done achievement hunting. So like when people come to us and they say, well, there's nothing else for me to do. It's like, well, I don't like,
that's the wrong phrase.
On the one hand, I assume you're telling me there's nothing else I want to do that I'm interested in. But on the other hand, if I just take your statement for what you said, you're wrong. Because there hasn't been enough hours since the game's been out to have done everything. They add content. Like fishing alone, Brian was asking me, he goes, hey, what do we do between ocean fishing? Because we were saying we're gonna do that together on stream. And but you say it lasts 30 minutes between queuing up the 3 7-minute zones and then getting out of it and the mandatory cutscenes, which I'm sure will get old. And we're having a lot of fun in there. What do you do for the roughly hour and a half until the next one? He's like, well, we could just go fish. And looking through the achievement log for fishing, there's 2,000 hours in there, like at least of just of like the getting all the big fish. Like who has all of those? My goodness.
I know someone on EU that she was a fisher main, and that's what she did. She has all of the fishing achievements. She's everything you could do as a fisher. She's done it.
Yeah,
that is so epic.
Yeah, and that's what she does. Like she doesn't really care so much for the combat. So like she'll do it for the main story quest because she's forced to. But other than that, she's just like fishing.
So I love fishing in games, and gigging is just different enough. It's like, oh wow, I can bring all the parts I like about mining and botany in there without having to go be a land dweller. I love gigging, and fishing is so much fun. I leveled my fisher up just hard casting. 1 to 70, I just hard casted it straight up on stream and had a ton of fun. Put the controller on vibrate, watched chat. When I wasn't streaming, I was watching Netflix. It's one of the most beautiful games. You're watching all these different weather and sunset. It's incredible. Had a blast. And the only thing it was missing compared to fishing in other games, because I love fishing in all the games. I always have fishing at Gap. Is in World of Warcraft, they had fishing raids through Warlords of Draenor and Legion, where you can go fish in a big group, and it's just this social thing. And when somebody gets an item, it triggers this event, and then we're all benefiting from the event. And then somebody else gets the item and it triggers the event again. So when the raid hits capacity, this event is up all the time. And so when they described ocean fishing, I was like, fishing raids. Yes. The only thing we were missing is a fishing raid.
I can't wait to give so much shade to all the Savage and Ultimate Raiders. Oh, you raid?
But do you fish?
Do you fish raid? Do you raid those fish? No. Not a true player then. Not a true player.
You're not savage ocean fishing.
I honestly have done very little fishing. I think I leveled my fisher pretty much purely with leave quests.
Oh, nice.
I just went and bought the high quality fish and handed
you can
them
just
in.
pay for it. Takes
minutes. Then this was back in A Realm Reborn, and then Heavenswood, I did the same thing. But then towards the end of Heavenswood, I actually was fishing in Diadem to make money because nobody wanted to fish in Diadem. So I was going in there and fishing the fish there and selling those. But then Stormblood, I just did it through the Namazu beast tribes. And that's probably my intention with this one as well. So.
Namatu has been my favorite beast tribe added so far. And the fact that we're getting a gathering one, literally when they said the fishing one, it's the only beast tribe that they've added to game that I got the mount in the minimum number of days.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Like they added
Every
it,
single
and like
day.
it's like, and I got it at reset. Like I logged in when the servers came back up to get that mount, and then, like and they're like, "Oh, how's your gearing going?" It's like, I think I already missed a raid reset.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
definitely don't tome cap, but I adore the Namatsu, and getting a Gathering Beast tribe, very exciting.
The
About
So keen.
the big thing outside of it, you know, when we talked to like in the context of Burnout, everybody's about to step into a whole new gear, you know, climb. Everything is new, like new tomes, new gear cap. That's going to make, you know, previous challenges easier. That's going to make obviously new challenges obviously more challenging and something to chase. So that for the at least for the next 3 to 6 months, that it's going to be a really fresh perspective before we get into 5.3 and the potential for, you know, deep dungeon and more. But let's pivot, because I think you really hit the nail on the head when it comes down to Burnout and content creation. Is about having and communicating that schedule. I think is the best piece of advice. That way, somebody who's like, because no matter what, I would assume that somebody's like, do you still play this game? Or like, it's like, yeah, like, but like anybody, you got to multitask. You got to have a couple of different flavors in there just to spice things up.
Your own sanity as well.
Well, the thing, and I don't know if you've seen this, and I'd be curious as your thoughts, but there's a pattern that I see in content creation, and it annoys me. And it's hype, and then sprint, and then, and excuse the expression, adult language, bitch. It's, you get hyped, you sprint on it hard, and then you complain about it. And that's the content creation schedule that I see within the cycle. And the thing with an MMO, where it's funny because at different points, people are going to come into the game at different points. So they might come in at the hype section and be fine. They might come into the sprint section and be like, I want to do that. But if they come in and you're mad about the game because, like, as a content creator, you're spending more time with the game than I would say a typical player, and now you're like, this is crap. I can't believe I've spent the last 10,000 hours doing this, and they should have anticipated my needs. And then you're like, I don't relate to this guy at all. What is happening?
I can't believe after just 1,000 hours in 1 week that I'm not going to have anything else to do for the next 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Well,
come on.
I guess that's very true though. I guess I never thought about that. Like, someone coming in that's new to the game probably won't be able to connect very well with someone that's been playing the game for 6 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I'm going to be like, they're going to be like throwing out terms. Professional.
Professional. I'm a professional.
You're going to be like throwing out terms and stuff that you don't even realize are things that they won't understand. So I try and be really mindful of new people coming in. But I guess I've never thought of it like that, with the whole cycle of being really hyped about something and then the sprint to get that stuff done. And then I guess because for me,
now that I've told you, like, it's gonna be hard for you not to see it, because it's so clear in my mind. It's so clearly the law of thirds. And then it goes on repeat. Like, oh, we got a new patch. This is incredible. I did all the content. This is awful.
Yeah.
Shadowbringers is adored by every player of 14 as one of the greatest MMO expansion experiences we've ever had, as a general rule. And yet it has caused us to have such a feverish desire to play the game more that it's actually, in my mind, also triggered probably the greatest amount of burnout, because nobody wanted to put it down. Because it's like, well, if it's the best thing ever, like, I have to eat my favorite food every night for dinner, every single night. And like, if I don't, what if they never make it again? And so like, you feel guilty spending time away from the game. People are like, oh, you're taking a break, so it's not that good. No, it's incredible. You should play it. But I've got 1,000 hours on this expansion, and like, other games are good too.
Other games? What? What's that?
All right, so let's change topics. When I said earlier, there we go, popping the top. Topic change. Let's focus on the first third, the hype. 5.2.
Okay.
5.2
is out. We're playing it this time next week.
Yeah.
Like, Brian and I both plan on it taking every waking moment of the day.
That's what isn't that what Yoshi P pretty much said?
Creation.
Like, don't plan on doing anything else if you're going to be watching those cutscenes and enjoying the story?
No, that's not how he said it. He didn't say quit your job.
That's what he said. He told everybody to quit their job.
He said for the average player, he said if you plan on enjoying the story, do not plan on getting to the rest of the content in the patch on your first day. Because I think they're looking at the average amount of time. If the average user spends 2, maybe 3 hours per session, that it could easily have a couple hours worth of story to enjoy. Yeah. But for somebody that's going to do a 15-hour stream on it, I'm sure you're going to get through the story just fine.
Yeah, true. True. I mean, I'm not going to be touching the story until probably a week after it comes out. Because
are you going to skip
and then watch the cutscenes behind it?
No, I'm not going to skip it. I'm just going to leave it unlocked.
Okay.
Until 1 week because I'm going straight into hardcore 5.2 rating.
Nice.
So we're gonna be hitting straight. Like servers are gonna come up. Yeah. We're going straight for normal.
Me too.
That's actually a lot of people. A lot of people in our group want to actually read the story. So we're gonna do the first night of slowly going through normal together, and then second night on we're doing 6 hours every night, and then Saturday, Sunday are 12-hour days.
Yeah.
To get through it in 1 week.
That's actually the really cool thing that a lot of people that are new to the cycle won't like. In the expansion, you had to wait 2 weeks for the raid, and then 2 weeks for the Savage. On Tuesday, raid and Savage right away. Get ready to rock and roll, and that can end up being really exciting.
It's exciting, but at the same time, it's kind of annoying. Like, I wish there was even just 1 week between the normal and the Savage would be nice. Because it just gives people, like... Because I care about the story of normal. Like, I care about the story of it.
Yeah.
But I also really want to get into the Savage. So it's like, we're going to deal with it. But
no, Relics...
It would be nice.
Relics not till 5.2.5, and 5.2.1 is roughly 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So they did space out some of the content. So depending on which parts of the content you're most excited about, there is a stagger for some of it. But for somebody that likes story and rating, I'm just gonna have to do
it's it. Like you gotta rip one of the band-aids off and
just spend a lot of time with your loved ones this weekend.
I'm taking tonight off stream to go and see friends, and I'm like a whole weekend plan to see people because literally I do not plan to leave my house for a week. As of Tuesday.
I was talking with Larry and I was like, hey, what are you going to be streaming? You going to be live? And he's like, yeah. I was like, absolutely. That's good. It's so fun because it is that kind of moment where, especially for anybody who's like, whether they're on a break or whether they're playing another game, it is a pivotal moment. And it is like, it's such a really fun day. The story thing ends up being kind of the challenge because it is for those like who are coming up and still might not be caught up. Like, yeah, you kind of want to start to try and avoid that. So just be aware, everybody, like there will be probably spoilers. So if you're trying to protect yourself, just, tag your streams, spoiler stream or not spoiler stream. So that way nobody's coming in like on accident and be like, what? What did I just see before I clicked off? So we know that you won't obviously be doing the dungeon because you're waiting on the story. But we do there's a lot that they've already shown off. Like they have a new trial. Looks like it's taking place on, on the I keep saying the first, but the source with the ruby weapon. How excited are you for that? Like, is that something that y'all are going to try to do along with Savage? Because we're also getting that extreme.
Yeah, we haven't actually spoken about it with our group yet. I think the plan is going to be that we're going to do Savage until we hit a DPS block. And if we hit the DPS block where we just can't meet the damage anymore, then we'll probably go and all get our weapons from Ruby Weapon and then go back to Savage. I think that's the plan. But I personally haven't played Final Fantasy XIV, so I don't actually have any connection to Ruby Weapon as a concept.
Okay.
So I'm going into it completely open-minded and just
it's gonna be a fun fight.
Yeah, I'm still excited for the fight. The extreme fights are always fantastic. And just from the little preview they showed us, it looks really unique and interesting. So I'm definitely keen on it.
So you said that you haven't played 7. Are you planning on playing the remake in April?
I don't have a PlayStation 4.
I don't either.
He did.
I did.
It
died.
Mine died too. It's sitting next to me. I have a giant paperweight down here.
I'll be playing 7. unless they keep delaying it and it coincides with Shadowlands, in which case I will be carefully driving my PlayStation up to Brian's because I don't want it to die, because I don't have to buy another PlayStation until the 5. And
yeah, I was like
playing 14 on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I would let Brian play it.
At this point in time,
I really want to play the remake. I would love to play the remake because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
I've played the demo. I got to play the demo at Gamescom, so like it looked really cool. But yeah, I'm not gonna get to play it till it comes out on PC. It seems so.
Yeah, 1 year they delayed it. They pushed it back to April again. So even though the game was delayed, that 1 year timed exclusivity, man, it's gonna be a hard year. Thankfully, there's other really cool things to play. What are your thoughts, obviously, on the one dungeon? They announced that it wasn't a shocker to me, but that's just my stance. How do you feel about that?
I'm fine with one dungeon, to be honest. I don't think we need 2 dungeons every time, because it's essentially just releasing 2 of the same piece of content with a different skin over it. Like, because to be fair, most of the time I cap my tomes without doing expert roulette anyway.
Yeah.
So the dungeons for me aren't like a big deal. 1 is more than enough for me. And I think that when they've started doing one dungeon as well, they're really high quality dungeons. They feel like they really bring a lot of work and effort into them. Like when I go into Grand Cosmos, I'm like, this is a really heckin' cool dungeon. And the mechanics are interesting. The bosses are fun. Like it seems more polished. And I'd prefer that personally.
And from a lore perspective, I think it's a great chance to explore things that they didn't get a chance to get to. Like part of me wants the Tempest to get a beast tribe, because like I just have so many questions. Like they spun up all that Ascian lore for these like do 'em once quests, and like they built this whole zone out of like Emmett's memory, and then I'm like, but I have other questions. And like the dungeons are a wonderful chance to kind of touch on that if they're not going to give us Ascian memories as a beast tribe. Like I don't know how that works from a lore perspective, but like they'd be a great beast tribe from a as a player. Like I could use 3 beast tribes a patch this time around. I just have so many questions.
It's kind of interesting because that last area, like when you go through Shadowbringers and you get to that last area with Amaranthine, it kind of feels like a traditional like JRPG or Final Fantasy game when you get to that final area and you're only there for a short time, but you're just in complete awe of the entire place while you're there, and then you finish and the game's done.
Right.
And it's like, I was only here for like 2 hours.
It's such a beautiful zone that we don't use for anything.
Yeah, but
like cinematically, like you come over this ridge and you're like, oh, it's all like, oh my gosh, like it's stunning. It's such a brilliant zone, and then it
was also protected by the players, because it's like, no, I don't want to show you the zone, so I'm not going to go to the sixth zone, so I don't have a chance of ruining any of this for you. And that's so cool to see. And at the same time, like in the summer,
it could have been an instance.
It could have been. It was so personalized in that regards. So like, what would you then, from that content perspective, because one dungeon, they say they're going to be using that extra dev time to focus in on anything else. Like what would you want to see for like the dungeons to really kind of give it, make it, on par with what people have been wanting for a while?
Well, I mean, I've been saying since like, I don't know, Stormblood, I think, that what I want to see is more open world content, more content that we can do as ourselves, solo, out in the world, that we don't need to be in an instance for, that we don't need to be in a party for. So like, for example, the shared fate system where we had to go around and do fates in all of the zones, freaking loved it. I literally capped them all out in like a couple of days. Like I had so much fun with it. So if I would like to see, like with only doing one dungeon, use the extra dev time to make some more systems around solo play personally.
Existing zones or new zones?
It's just in the existing zones, just in the overworld. Like I just like having things to do while I'm in queue, or achievements to work on my own. Like at the moment, I'm working on all of the botany achievements where you just go around and you log in all of the different areas. So I'm just running around hitting trees 4,000 times in Lenosha because it's just something to do on my own, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm really interested to. I don't know if we're like jumping
You're
too
good.
far ahead.
Just jump
No,
on
no, no.
over.
Yeah.
Like with the relic, how they're going to be introducing like this Eureka, but not Eureka. And they said they wanted it to be more focused on solo, like a little bit more something you can do on your own a bit more, has me very excited because that's what I thought Eureka originally was going to be.
Right.
I thought it was going to not be an instance. I thought it was going to be a new zone that we just went into and we did things to work on our relic. And I feel like that would have worked a lot better.
We've had a major technological shift since then. We have added world visits since then. So it used to be that if it was not on a world, it was on the instance servers. And those were the only two places something could live. But now Eureka could be a world, in which case you could go there. And while you're questing there, you'd still be able to queue for dungeons. And that way it would kind of act as an in-game zone for all the servers on a data center. So that way it kind of feels populated, because one of the issues Diadem really struggles with is that once people lose interest, there's not enough people to fill it. And so like from a Eureka standpoint, you don't want to necessarily be bound to just the people on your server, because what if you're on a server where it doesn't have a lot of people interested in grinding relic?
Well, and then you get rid of the server reset. There was definitely some technological challenges that I think personally hurt Eureka. For me, like I was playing Eureka and I was like, good Lord, I'd love to be in queue for PvP, because I know the queue time for PvP is large, but I could sit back out here, take my chocobo out, and just enjoy the zones and take my time, but then also multitask in a way. Eureka forced me to make a decision. It forced me that I might get lucky and get a party because there's certain things that we don't have that we need. And so my hope is that the next iteration of it is something that kind of plays around with the new technology that's been introduced with the game overall. And that kind of takes me into kind of the next kind of question. You've obviously dove in head first into a lot of PvP. What's your thoughts on it? What are you liking about it? What would you change about it?
My experience with PvP is probably a little bit different to a lot of the player base because I play on the Japanese servers. And the way that PvP runs on JP is very different to NA and EU. Because like I've played PvP on EU when I was over there. I haven't done much PvP on NA, but I've been told it's fairly similar to EU. On JP, like I've been mainly doing frontlines a lot. It's very organized. Like you can't just have people running around doing whatever they want. You have mobs of 24 players running around in a coordinated group doing things. And it's crazy.
Together for the love.
Yeah, it's insane. Everything. Like I have a whole hotbar on the side of my screen that has macros on it that does shouts in Alliance chat directing the team where to go. Because if there's not someone directing your team, you're screwed because the other teams will have someone doing that. But personally,
Harry
I think
wielding his power.
I've been dubbed bloodthirsty Harry.
Bloodthirsty.
Yeah, you were. Did you get the achievement? You got your slaughter, whatever it is.
Yeah, 1,000 kills in front lines. It felt really good. And considering like I mainly play healer in front lines too, it felt even better.
Healers are beasts in PvP. Healers are beasts.
They really are. But I think overall the state of PvP, it's interesting because they've obviously tried to balance PvP in a way that works for Feast and for front lines, which seems to be working pretty well. Like the whole potions thing, the more AoE damage and stuff, it's both good and bad. Like for example, in front lines, if all 24 people, imagine 24 people all dropping their AoE skill on another group of 24 people and then they all just die. Like it's just everyone's dead.
Ryan and I have long advocated remove the healers. Let's just encourage that. Let's lean further into the dead. Everybody dies.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I kind of agree in a way. Like
let's mark the day.
I think that it would be interesting for PvP if they kind of shifted this idea of having a healer in PvP to having a support role. So like have some healing, but give them abilities that are more focused on supporting the team, like, buffs on speed, damage, all that kind of stuff.
Just imagine if they just naturally increase the overall passive healing just by being around them in that regard. Yeah. So let them focus in on kind of being damaged and doing damage. Maybe that kept your team up. And thus, because it's, when we did it, when we said no healers, like we had the best Feast matches ever. it changed the strategy.
And they ended.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless of them ending, like there was lots of death, lots of excitement. You take that, like the ideas they have in Feast, like when you knock somebody out, how it flashes up, like having just that excitement and that cheering ended up being just a ton of fun. Plus, you actually never knew who was going to win. And the thing why we did it was like, oh, the team that win is the team that has the best healer. That's the litmus test, custom or maybe not all the time, but it's, who has the best healer is the team. Like, okay, well, Jelly's on that team. I guess that's okay. They win. Jelly, come over here.
She's the best healer in our community.
Yeah, we win.
Right,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, what if we don't heal? Let's see what happens. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, guys, retreat. We got to retreat because you can't heal. Like nothing's healing you. So like, well, you're gonna die. It's just a matter of where you choose.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, as a healer in PvP, I agree. Healing in PvP, honestly, it's very stressful for starters, but it's because you can literally carry the team. Like you can, especially in Feast, you can carry. No, I don't. I do my clicking, but like for this season, it's a lot better. You can't carry as hard as you used to be able to as a healer because even if you're spamming Cure 2, you can't out DPS 2 DPS constantly hammering on one player.
Yeah.
It just does. You just can't do it anymore unless you're using cooldowns. Whereas the season before this, just before Shadowbringers, a good healer would mean that no one on your team would die for the entire Feast match, no matter how good the DPS were. Like, so they've definitely done better, and now healing is nowhere near as strong as it was.
Oh my gosh, it was so strong.
Yeah, I think they still need to take it a step further and make the healers more support roles rather than healer roles in PvP. I think it would make it a lot more fun.
If nothing else, make it, like I said, like make them blood healers. Like they're putting out damage that's causing some kind of heal and something like that to go off of. But that's a big change. And somebody in chat's like, I'm a healer. Zoe is saying it. I'm a healer main. I feel attacked. So
yeah, it's like, I'm a healer main too. I know what you mean, but like
I am in PvP.
Yeah.
It's my favorite job to play in PvP, and I am more than willing to admit it breaks PvP for everybody else. It's fun for me to be like the decision maker for so many people.
Yeah.
But I can understand how it breaks the mode.
But in saying that, the new front lines map, I think, is definitely a step in the right direction because it does encourage fighting. It encourages like fast pace, go here, battle, rather than let's wait. Okay, an objective is up. Let's go get the objective and fight. Oh, the objective is over. Let's go back to our base and wait. Like that's kind of what Shadow was like. It was very slow and you weren't actually fighting all that much. Whereas this is like, no, like you battle, like you have full on 24v24v24 just going at each other.
Well, even with Shatter,
so
like
much better.
Even with Shatter, like the priority sometimes was crystals. And so you're like, okay, well, big crystals up. Everybody's trying to get as much damage for the big points. And then it would be utter chaos. Why then people retreat. So it's like, and then you would just try to, if you had the strength, you would try to pick them off. Otherwise you would just like, okay, now we're going to sprint over to the next crystal. So yeah, I totally feel you there. Does the Final Fantasy XIV have too many PvP modes? Because one of the biggest issues, and I'm curious about like the Japanese culture, is the wait to do this event. Like, there's been times where my queue time's just been abysmal, and I'm like, oh, I would love to do this content, and then I just go and see a 30-minute queue, and I go, I'm not gonna wait 30 minutes. I don't have that kind of luxury. I'm gonna go back to leveling or something else that gets me into content sooner. What's your thoughts on that?
I think I'm definitely lucky being on JP because during peak time you will get queues for PvP. Like you won't be waiting more than 5 minutes. If you're during peak time, you will not wait more than 5 minutes to get in and do PvP.
We could clear a dungeon waiting for ours.
Yeah. Like if you try to queue through the day, I tried to queue through the day yesterday and I waited 120 minutes and it just still didn't pop. So you're never going to get in during the day, but at nighttime it is just bang, bang, back to back matches constantly for front lines.
How cool.
I don't know about Rival Wings. Like once the tomes are gone from Rival Wings, I don't know how active that is because personally I don't do Rival Wings that much. So I'll be interested to see once the tomes are taken away how active Rival Wings is going to be. But like you said, like with the amount of modes that they have, I think I don't know how they could do it, but they need to work out some way that Rival Wings is just considered as another Frontlines match. And you queue for roulette battleground PvP, and sometimes you'll get put in Rival Wings, and sometimes you'll get put in Frontlines. They need to somehow group them all into one thing, because having them as two completely separate modes makes it hard for people to do the content when it comes to queues and stuff.
I think I'd like to see a little bit more unity beyond that. Like you have the feast season. I wish that there was a PvP season and then you could participate in it in all three categories. You know, in that way, just because like track my stats, track my data. And Zoe asked a question for you, Chris. I thought it was really interesting talking about, does WoW have that same kind of problem with healers in PvP?
So WoW actually tackles healers super interesting in Battlegrounds. So they have a million modes, and you can definitely queue for random Battleground. And then it's kind of like a dungeon finder type thing. So it already kind of sorts all this out where all their modes are under one big one, and you would run that for your like, oh, I get a daily reward if I do that. So you do your leveling roulette. It would toss you into a random Battleground from all the Battlegrounds. Or you can queue for one in particular if you're trying to like farm an achievement. And then when it pairs people, it says, okay, we need this many people to start a match. What do we have? And so rather than rely solely on like an adventure or need type thing, it balances it based on what you got. So if you have 4 healers, both teams get 2 healers. If you have 2 healers, both teams get 1 healer. If you have 6 healers, both teams get 3 healers. And it literally, so there are matches that you've got all this healing and it's just this endless brawl in the middle because nobody dies. And there are matches where I heal in PvP and it's me against one other healer, and like you just feel helpless because like in some of these modes like you just get melted because they're like, we take out the one healer and then they all die. Well, that's me. So like I die first every time, and then it forces your spec. So when you queue in as a healer or not a healer, you can't change. So there's no changing of jobs. So it literally says, want to queue in as a healer, you are locked in as a healer and you finish it as a healer. Nobody can swap. This is your healer. Deal with it. And so that's how they balance for that to kind of keep from Frontlines where like everybody can, it's just chaos. Like there's no sense of balance being pushed in by the system.
Yeah. Which is kind of what you want in PvP, though. You want chaos, you want randomness, you want just, you know.
It's great content in my mind that always kind of balances out gaps in PvE content because it's always changing. Like, okay, this match is going to be this. I'm still hopeful. I remember they were asked this at FanFest about like a Guild Wars style system in which that you kind of had world versus world. And it got interpreted as open world PvP, and it's like I don't think anybody really wants open world PvP outside of duels. Like I wouldn't mind being challenged or challenging people, like in that case, if that's something we wanted to do, just to kind of make it interesting. But like, good Lord, I was like, oh, that sounds epic. Go ahead, Chris.
So World of Warcraft has had these a couple of times over different expansions, and basically what it works out to be, in my favorite iteration, they've done a lot of things, is not necessarily the open world. My favorite form of open world PvP is not necessarily the being able to attack other people while they're questing or gathering. Like it's a gank fest. It adds excitement to the game, but it's not the most fun for everybody, especially the guy mining. But my favorite form of open world PvP where I think both sides are having fun are where there's like a zone. So like Lakeland would have like this middle island, and then every certain number of hours, that's varied, there would be a battle that takes place, and it would kind of cue people up. There'd be a trumpet in Crystarium that would say, you know, the battle for Lakeland is about to commence, and then you would go there, and then the teams would duke it out. And so you would duke it out on behalf of your Grand Company, and then whichever Grand Company wins now holds that zone for a certain number of hours, and so they get advantages to that, access to certain vendors, things like that that you don't get access to if you lose. And so it kind of just encourages this. I like it more than they have some like open world arenas, and they've tried a lot of different types of open world, but that's my favorite that I think would function in 14, because Grand Company doesn't really lock anybody out, but it'd have to be a little free for all, because like you'd have people in your free company that aren't in your grand company, because that's a thing that happens.
That is something that does happen.
Not everybody's smart enough to pick an adder, man. Just be the adders.
Well, then everybody, it's like, this is the free company. I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it evolves, because it's a question that Yoshi P's talked on numerous times. Like, how do we reduce the queue times? How do they how do they solve the challenge that is PvP? And personally, I'd like to see Feast take a bigger role. But I think that comes down to the role limitations. I think Chris and I, even back in Stormblood, we said, just tell me what you're looking for. Yeah, like, I want to play Adventure in Need. Are you looking for a tank, a melee, a ranged, or a healer? Yeah. What is the Adventure in Need? What are you lacking to get this match going and make that happen?
And go tie a mount behind it. Go say, if you have functioned as the Adventurer in Need 1,000 times, you get, this PvP mount. Great. Perfect. Like, encourage people to go fill that slot. So tell me what the slot is, and then encourage people to fill it. That because the biggest issue right now is that PvP queues, at least in NA, are really long, and because they're long, nobody does them, and because nobody does them, they stay long. So it like becomes, so you've got to jumpstart the system here. You've got to have something that acts as the chicken or the egg, so we can get this thing started.
Yeah. So feast during season, like the queues like pop off during season, during peak time. Again, this is my experience from JP. And then when I was playing on EU as well, when I was doing the feast season on EU last year, the queue was popping off during peak time still. But if you want to try and do feast outside of season, you're never going to get a queue.
Yeah,
they start out strong on NA.
It's just not going to happen.
Our advice is, if you're trying to farm like a lot, you're trying to get to like your, a certain number of kills or anything like that, it's like a seasonal event. Be there on day one. And just hit it hard, and then when you get bored, so is everybody else, and then it kind of dies off.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on JP.
Well, that sounds awesome.
That does.
Competing
use exit lag and create a character on JP for your PvP needs.
Don't worry about paying exit lag.
Like to give a comparison, on EU, I finished 66th out of 100 in the top 100 for Feast last season. On EU, and now competing on JP. I got 66 with a rating of like 1700, right? Nice. On JP, to even be in the top 100, you need over 2000 points.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many more people doing it, and so many, like, that's the thing. Well, that's the other thing that I think
it's great to be reminded why they add this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that like the difference between the JP player base and the EU and NA player base is actually very different. The way they play the game and utilize the tools in game are very different.
It can also vary data center to data center. And there's different cultures that kind of form around the different data centers, which is really quite interesting to see. I would say Crystal, obviously with Balmung, drives a lot of the, that role play, that kind of style. And they're not so, big on the raid scene. And then so it's like, hey, what are you looking for? See if you slot into a different data center to have a kind of a different experience with the game, hands down. But I'm going to pivot because I opened up another can a little while ago. Third can, last part of the podcast. The Crafting Gathering, Diadem, Ishgard, all that. Harry, have you participated in that? What's your thoughts? Here we go once again into the breach with Crafting and Gathering updates. And just by you're shaking, that makes me excited. I love it when Harry gets excited because I'm like, I asked him the right question. Let's talk me through it. Why are you excited? Why do you like it?
I'm really, really excited. Any excuse for me to do gathering and it be relevant and beneficial and viable, I am there for it. When I say gathering, I mean specifically botany and mining. I'm not super into the fishing, but botany and mining are my jam.
Not everybody has what it takes.
No,
it's a select few that are going to be prepared for fishing raids.
Okay. One thing that they could do that would make me fish, remove bait, and I would fish.
So they largely did for low level zones.
Oh, that's all right.
They added that like leveling bait, basically, and on the ocean fishing they sell bait on the boat.
Yeah, so but then you have to hold it in your inventory.
And then toss it when you're done.
And my inventory is so full all the time.
What about that Chocobo saddlebag? Treat that
It's full all the time.
Of what?
My
You
Chocobo
can desynth
saddlebag
everything
has-
now.
And it's not even gear. My Chocobo saddlebag has all of my tokens. So like all of my raid tokens, all my savage books, all of my Eureka tokens, all of my anima farming tokens, has all of that in there. So I have no room in there for anything else.
You don't have any types of tokens that you're like done getting things from, so you don't need to keep those anymore?
See, the thing is, what if I need them one day?
Then put them in your bank. That's what retainers are for. You can have 10 retainers. And if you pay for the companion app, you can have like, I don't know, is it 12 now? Yeah, it's just
It
a
was
lot.
only just recently that I threw out all of my material 1s and 2s. I had stacks of them in my retainer.
Did you at least mutamix them? Well, don't do the 1s and 2s. It's not really worth the time.
Yeah, no, I ended up throwing out the 1s and 2s.
Did you mutamix your 5s and above?
I did. Yeah, the higher one. I mean, I
There's
still have all my 4s and
a
above.
ton of money to be made mutamixing.
Well, I have heaps. I have so much material. I have
For
random. Anyway, my inventory is max. But anyway, diadem.
Now material is going to be easy to
get. I'm so excited to go back into Diadem because I personally really liked Diadem when every iteration of Diadem, except for when they tried to make it more structured. I actually really liked it the whole way through. So I'm so excited to go back there and it be focused on gathering because
and
that's
rocket launching.
So much fun and blowing up enemies.
Jim and that rocket.
Look, it's absolutely ludicrous, but I love it.
I like that, like, we can barely justify like Gunbreaker and Machinist in the lore, but the miner and botanist who've been running around with like 5 HP and no plan suddenly have a laser cannon. Like, what? And it's powered by what? Gathering. You just gather and then you compress aether and then you can fire it out of a laser cannon.
I saw that
this whole time.
I saw that and I was like, we need a gatherer on the raid. Like,
I'm all for it. That
would be
I
so
might be
nuts.
maining gatherer the next expansion. They got to find a way for me to quest with that. How do I get through MSQ with my gatherer?
Hey, and the funny thing is in 1.0 you would do a thing called parlay. So you wouldn't actually engage in a fight, but you would parlay with the enemy, and then if you win, then they go away.
Wow, I never got that far in 1.0 to actually do that.
Oh my!
Because I was a
horrible.
miner main. I started as a miner in 1.0.
Yeah.
But I never got far enough because I couldn't figure out how to pay my sub, so I stopped playing.
That sounds like Chris. Like, Chris, hey, we playing? You're like, they won't take my money.
They wouldn't take my money.
Yeah.
Like, I spent an hour trying to give Square money. I just started posting my credit card number in places, and it wasn't doing anything.
I was like, let me pay my sub and I'll keep playing. And after like a week of trying to figure it out, I was like, I can't figure it out. I'm not playing this game.
I've taken 2 breaks long enough that I decided to cancel my sub since 2.0, where I was like, I'm not going to play for a couple of months. I'll just turn it off. Like, no point in just throwing $45 down the toilet, and I'll be back in 3 months. And both times it was such an ordeal to put it back on that my wife said, I don't know what's going on in our lives in the future, but just don't turn it off ever again.
Yeah, just
because
leave it
like
on.
she's like, I don't want to hear you complain for a week about how hard it is. Like, they just won't take my money. And like, I have all these issues that Brian never has. Like the other day we did something, it was the Stadia launch.
Yeah.
And like I had some weird bug and then we looked it up and it was like 5% of users. And he's like, that makes sense that would be you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, and the thing is like, especially with 14, it's like, I wish this was breaking because I'm having the experience of a lifetime. And it's like, yeah, guys, there's issues. And if it's going to happen, I don't think it's happening to me. Like, I'm going to have the premiere experience. I don't know why it's, whatever. And same thing with the in-game, like the joke's always been within our group. It's like, sucks to be you. Like, Brian's going to get the role.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the karma balance is out because I've gotten in to buy BlizzCon tickets and FanFest tickets every time I've tried for my group.
Right.
And I've always been able to get on when there's like a server queue.
Yeah.
So like I got to play WoW Classic on day 1. I got to play Shadowbringers without a wait on day 1. So like, as long as I can get them to take my money, it all balances out. I just got to get really good at giving them money.
Yeah. Just get their personal bank address so you can just directly inject it into their bank.
How do I tell my bank, like, if Square Enix asks for money, just approve it? Like,
just let them have it.
Just let them.
They've
how do I set up
earned
a direct deposit for Square Enix?
Yeah.
Just request what you need. Yeah, I'm really excited about crafting. I think the new relics look awesome.
Yes.
I'm a little bummed that they're not at least like 5% better than the pentamelt stuff, but I don't have pentamelted stuff, so they'll be best in slot for me. But I don't know.
They will be better in the future though, and
They
it's
will.
still something to, and it's still just something to work on. And when it comes to gatherers and crafters, I like to do everything free. I don't like to do anything that's going to cost me money because it kind of doesn't make sense to me. Because they're meant to be my ways to make money.
Right.
So
Sure.
if the tools are slightly worse and they're free and I just have to grind them, then I'll do that. So
I'm really excited about the fact that they're gonna upgrade. Part of me wonders, like, so when I first said crafting relic, when did I first say crafting relic, Brian?
You said it when I think right after your gutted video, in which
yeah.
It's
And I was
so
like,
funny.
And I said it as a troll. Like I said it as, instead of battle relics, instead of this expansion, they should have relics for crafters because they're so focused on getting everybody into crafting.
Yeah.
And then they said crafting relics, and I was like, okay, but I'm actually excited about it. Like, and so, but one of the things that's interesting about a crafting relic is like a battle relic, you have to reset it because you reset the gear every expansion. But with crafting, you're not breaking the game. So if they want to have the crafting relic at its final form gain something like 20% less chance to lose materials or 1% chance to yield 2 of whatever you're crafting or whatever, they can put those things on those tools, and then those can carry expansion to expansion to expansion. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing stopping you from, now I'm not saying they will, but the fact that they have it, because you can't do that with a battle relic without either creating an on-ramp for people who weren't there last expansion or somehow justifying that it's not good ticause they did it one time. They had allowed us, like, if you had the previous one, it like saved you the first step, but like it wasn't equipable until then. Am I just mixing up my games here? Wasn't one of the expansions we could bring our relic from the previous expansion and like gave us the first step?
Yeah, that was actually in
Heavensward.
So from ARR to Heavensward, like if you had a completed ARR relic, you got to skip the first step of Heavensward.
You guys were quiet enough. I thought I just went nuts. I was like, maybe I just made that up.
That's what we should. That's what I should always. I just need to get with every guest, and it's like at randomly at some point of the thing, the show. Let's just get real quiet. And
when I wink at you, just let him think that Atma never existed. There was no Atma grind. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't.
A Realm Reborn relic was the best relic. Just saying.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that.
If they just re-released a Realm Reborn relic this time, would you be happy? Like identical?
No, because I think they always need to innovate. But
okay,
I think out of all of them, it's been the best one. It was the most. There was every step was unique and different, and there was interesting things that you had to do. It wasn't just go, my child, farm tomes and do nothing else, or go, my child, farm fates and do nothing else.
Right.
Like that's what Heavensward and Stormblood were.
It was cool that it was very like, I guess for anybody who's just gotten in, it was very like Blue Mage-esque, where it was like, oh, I'm running this dungeon for this skill, and then I'm out killing this world mob for this skill. Like everybody was at different steps, and so there would be people like, hey, can you come help me do this step for my Atma grind? Can you come with me? Like I need this thing.
Yeah. Julie and I we were having a blast with it because you could even farm up extra Atma. So it was like, okay, well, I might as well come with you because I can get that. My one change that I would have made to that entire system is I would have had the Atma drop at any level. And obviously once you hit 50, I would maybe increase the drop rate. But just the idea that like if you're as a player, you're running around, you do a fate, and then all of a sudden it's like shashing, and you're like, what is that? And you're like, oh yeah, that's a part of the end game. That's a current that's something you need for your end game. It's very rare as a like a level 10 or a level 20 or a 30 player. Like all of a sudden your mind's blown. Like you just got this really rare thing that's going to actually help you out, once you get to that step. And then once you get to that step, maybe make the drop rate a little bit higher. But that's what I was like, I love that stuff. I love it when a game's like, here's something that you can't use, and makes you go, what is that? Because the animation on the screen is, it is unique.
Yeah.
But I think what they wanted to do was make it like, unless you have the thing active, you can't get them, because like they wanted it to be something you actively went and did,
hunted,
rather than it be like, oh, you've just passively gotten these from leveling or whatever.
Yeah, in my mind, that you
like,
might get one. If you were really lucky, you would have gotten two
Yeah.
all the way. Like, just so that it's just that, what was that?
Yeah.
Like, just, oh yeah.
But how satisfying
inventory.
is the sound?
Exactly. Clogging up that limited inventory space that we had back in ARR.
So
we didn't have Chocobo
WoW is
saddlebags. We didn't
adding
have...
what you're saying. Like, the number of times that Brian makes a suggestion, I'm like, oh, that already exists, or that's about. So Shadowlands for the first time is going to make it now where once you've hit level cap once, so once you make, get to cap, future characters you level up will be able to start gaining in-game resources, like if you were grinding Atma or tomestones, as they go. Because at that point, you're on that race to cap. So like once your red mage is at cap, because that's what you mained through the story. If you want to go back through previous zones and you want to grind up fates in the old world and stuff like that on your white mage, which is level 1, you can still find, and you'd still find things for your relic equivalently. Under the theory there that it's like you're already in that mindset of like, oh, I gotta get to cap because like I have to do all this stuff. It's like, no, you're already doing the stuff. Enjoy the journey. And we're gonna see how that lands, because like if that doesn't land well, that's a huge learning experience for 14 to be like, oh yeah, don't do that. But if it works really well, then they can be like, okay, how would we implement that in our system? Because systems are different. So like,
it'd be interesting. I mean, in a ways, I feel like WoW is trying to just basically more implement that you can do because with 14, you can do everything on one character. And I think WoW is trying to very much implement a way in that like making alts is just like changing jobs. Like they're trying to make it so seamless between different characters and leveling everything up to make it feel like you're essentially just changing roles like you do in 14.
Account wide is an incredibly common term now. You can find items now that like you use them. So like while you're out maybe grinding Namatsu, it would drop an item sometimes randomly that would give, X amount of Namatsu rep, so like, and it would kind of boost you. Those items are account bound now. So that means that if you're doing your Namatsu dailies at cap on your main, you can transfer to an alt and you can mail them that item so that they're grinding up their Namatsu rep because it's not capped. So like, yes, they have, you're exactly right. They've 100% learned from 14 and they have implemented things to start pulling off the strengths of 14.
Yeah. So Harry, where can people find you? What you got, what you excited about? And share, the floor is yours.
Well, I've just been pumping myself up for 5.2 hardcore rating. It's my first time ever doing hardcore rating, so I'm so very excited. We're gonna be streaming like every day until we get it done, basically. And I've just never done that before. We're not racing for world first or anything, but we are aiming to clear it in the first week. So
nice.
I'm super pumped. It's my first Savage tier being a DPS rather than being a healer, so that's also going to be interesting. And I'm so pumped for to stream it all as well and just share it with everyone. And yeah, it should be an awesome time. But you can find me at twitch.tv/HealMeHarry, or you can find me on Twitter at HealMe_Harry as well, where we stream normally Monday through Friday, but when 5.2 comes out, we'll be doing 7 days. So yeah,
check him out, guys. He's a pleasure to watch, always entertaining. And then you could stick around for Tim after he does all the stuff in 14 and who knows what other games. So it's gonna be a fun spring. It's gonna be a really fun spring, guys. Chris, where can people find you? What are we working on?
Well, they can find us streaming over at Work to Play. We've moved all of our streaming that doesn't take place here on Twitch over to Work to Play, so that on YouTube, people that want their notifications, they want to opt in with the bell on Work to Game, but they don't want our live notifications there, they can have that separation. And all of our shows will stay there. And then on Work to Game, we are prepping for 5.2. So I'm going to put out some Tim guides before it goes, and we're resting up with a ton of Final Fantasy content coming out.
For me, I'm almost done with Astrologian, which will will finish off all the healers. And it's going to be, I think 5.2 is going to be really fun. I had somebody talk to me about if I won the raid, and I go, as long as I'm not leading the organization of it, I will come. Like, I will do the raids, but I tried to organize a raid, and I was like, and that just, it doesn't work for my personality. I can come, I can get the job done. And yeah, that's going to be what I'm working on. So if you guys missed the last show, it was Chris and me. And we're going to be doing some more of those podcasts. So if you guys have topics that you guys want us to beat into the ground and overanalyze, be sure to let us know in the comments below. You can find this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Mixer, all the whatever the podcast things are.
Who do we have next time?
And next we have Xandri. She's coming back. So this is going to be our reaction. Xandri's going to be reacting to the 5.2. That's going to be nice because it's going to be in the evening, giving us at least a full day and a half to play with the expansion, the patch, and more. So it's going to be a fun time as we roll into the full February release schedule. So that's it. That's the show, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in live. We might do a little after show. We'll see here. I'm going to sober up a little bit with some coffee, and we're going to hang out for a little bit. But for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
I'm Harry.
That's our show. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for watching, listening. Love you guys. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.